Hello AP Biology students, we're going to go over the 7th section in Unit 1 about macromolecules. And in this section, we're going to generally talk about the 4 different macromolecules and the reactions that create or break them down. First of all of these macromolecules are mainly comprised of carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, phosphorus, and sulfur, otherwise known as CHOMPs. You can see in our person here, most of a person is made of oxygen and then carbon, followed by hydrogen, nitrogen, and the other elements that you would find. I also like to review what an organic molecule is at this point, and it's not like the organic things that you see at a grocery store. An organic molecule is a molecule that contains both carbon and hydrogen. And like I said before, it may also contain oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus, and sulfur. Inorganic molecules, on the other hand, typically don't contain carbon and hydrogen. This would be like table salt or water. Now, all of these macromolecules are going to contain carbon. Carbon is a versatile element since it contains 4 valence electrons. This means it must obtain 4 other electrons to fill its outer shell. So it's going to create a lot of covalent bonds with other elements, mainly the ones we talked about before. I always like to say that the carbon is the element of life because it is just the basis and kind of the framework that we make our macromolecules around. And specifically, we make these macromolecules around things called carbon skeletons. These are just straight chains of carbons in specific patterns. You can see what these patterns look like and the different representations we have of these carbon skeletons. You can see these carbons are in this line here, and that gives us a strong kind of backbone for the molecule. Here are other types of carbon skeletons. You can see they're highlighted in this like greenish bluish color here, but there are different chains, so you can see the different formations and even rings that are possible for the macromolecules. Now, alongside these carbon skeletons are things called functional groups, and these are just specific arrangement of atoms that have unique properties that we see time and time again in the macromolecules. And these specific arrangement of atoms have specific names. You can see like this ether group here, this nitro group, the amide group here. So they have these names and they're seen quite often in macromolecules. Whenever you look at a macromolecule, you might see something called a variable group or the R group. This represents just a larger portion that could be a bunch of different types of elements or atoms. So again, this R group just signifies there are other elements here that are important, but we don't know unless we're looking at a specific type of, in this case, amino acid. It's just saying there are other elements here. Now, like I said before, we have these functional groups with names, their structure, and where they're found in, and different properties that they usually or typically have. I don't have my AP Biology students memorize most of these, but they should start to recognize them more and more as we go through the macromolecules. Like, they should definitely know what a phosphate group looks like, because we see phosphate groups a lot when talking about a DP and a TP. But these functional groups are used to help us identify the different types of macromolecules. Now, these macromolecules are made of many subunits called monomers. So think of a mono as one, monomer, and the polymer is the larger unit. So polymers are made up of many monomers. For this reaction to occur, there's a specific type of reaction that is called a dehydration synthesis reaction. This is a reaction that forms polymers by removing water. Think dehydrate, you're taking out water, and in this case, we're taking out a OH and an H group to form water. With this reaction, these 2 monomers are going to be bonded together to form a covalent bond between them. So again, we're taking these 2 monomers, forming a covalent bond here by removing water. This is a dehydration synthesis reaction. We're dehydrating it, we're taking out water, and we're building up a larger molecule. Here's an example of a dehydration synthesis reaction between 2 amino acids. What you can see going on here is a hydrogen and a hydroxyl group from each side forming water here. This allows the 2 molecules to be bonded together. Here's another example of a dehydration synthesis reaction between 2 sugar molecules. Again, water is being formed and a covalent bond is forming between the 2 sugar molecules. In a hydrolysis reaction, we're going to do the exact opposite. We're adding in water and we're breaking apart a polymer. Think hydro, meaning water, and lysis, meaning to break. You can see in this hydrolysis reaction, water splitting 2 sugars, forming 2 monomers. Again, this water molecule is splitting the covalent bond that's joining these 2 monomers together. Here's another example of a hydrolysis reaction where water is going to split these 2 amino acids and break the covalent bond between them. This forms 2 monomers. So this section is basically leading into the 4 different types of macromolecules that we see in biology. These 4 different macromolecules are carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, and nucleic acids. Each of these macromolecules are going to have monomers that are going to make examples of their polymers. So each category of macromolecules are going to have different examples or different types of polymers that fall under that category. The reason they fall under that category is first by the monomer that's used to make the polymer. And second, it's by the different functional groups and different qualities of those polymers that put them into the specific groups. So basically in each group, we're going to be looking at their unique properties and why they fall in that category. Now you might notice this asterisk here next to fatty acids, and it's because lipids don't technically have a universal monomer. There are some lipids that have fatty acids as its monomer, but there are also others that don't. So this is that one group that just doesn't play by the other rules, and it does kind of have some unique properties that help us identify lipids versus the other categories. But I just love these past 2 memes because they are good quality memes.